Detroit Lions outlook for the 2023 NFL season. The Lions are a really good team. They're one of the best teams in the NFC this year. And last season, they got out to a really slow start. But then they went 8-2 down the stretch. And now they're on everybody's radar. You're wondering, how improved is this defense going to be? The run defense was not good, and their secondary wasn't good neither. So what did they do to improve that? Well, they brought in a lot of help in the secondary. They signed cornerbacks Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley. In free agency, they also brought in defensive back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They drafted linebacker Jack Campbell, defensive back Brian Branch in this past year's NFL draft. So the Lions defense, at least their revamped secondary, looks really good on paper. Now, how is that going to translate on the field? We don't know. That's to be decided. But from looking at the Lions' defensive additions and thinking about what they already had last year, I think this defense should be a couple of steps better than what it was in 2022. I don't think this defense can go any lower than what they did last season. I mean, this defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. And with how good this offense is, imagine if the Detroit Lions can just have a above average defense or an average defense. That would be enough to potentially make this team, good enough to make it to the NFC Conference Championship game. Honestly, you're going to have one of the best offenses in the NFL. Ben Johnson was somebody who got a lot of looks for being a head coach this offseason. He ends up coming back to Detroit, and he probably isn't going to be in the Motor City for much longer. So the Lions, you look at the talent that they have offensively, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams. There's a lot of talent on offense at wide receiver for the Lions. Now, you probably could use a little bit more depth. You may not have a wide receiving core that makes you go, this is one of the best in the league. But this is a really solid unit. They got some solid receivers on this squad. And although they're not guys who are going to make you jump out of your socks, I mean, you are really hyped up for what Jameson Williams can be when he finally can stay healthy and have significant reps and get significant playing time and targets thrown his way. We saw some glimpses of how good Jameson Williams potentially could be. But, we just got to see it. And when you look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the better receivers in the game. And I also think that some of the guys that they have at wide receiver 3 and 4 aren't too shabby neither. Marvin Jones, even though he's up there in age, he's pretty productive to be at the state of his career that he's in. I mean, last year, the Jacksonville Jaguars, he made a couple of big plays. I mean, this is still a very solid receiver, despite the fact that he kind of is on his last leg of his career. And you add Jahmyr Gibbs at running back. We were already talking about him a little bit earlier on this episode. He's a weapon. He's not just a great running back. This dude, you can use him pretty much anywhere. You can line him up in the slot as a outside wide receiver because how good his route running is. There is nothing that Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs can't do. That's why both of them got drafted in the first round. And when you give a guy like Ben Johnson a chess piece like Jahmyr Gibbs, he's going to utilize it in every single way that he can find fit. And Jared Goff, I think, is probably the most underrated quarterback going into the upcoming NFL season. People forget that Jared Goff had a 14-0 touchdown interception ratio during the second half of last year when the Detroit Lions went 8-2 down the stretch, and nobody talks about it. People still view Jared Goff as this game manager QB. When Jared Goff has the right pieces around him and he has a really good offensive coordinator or a really good play calling, he cooks. He deserves to get a little bit of MVP consideration. Now, would I put him in the top 5 of any MVP list? Probably not. But I do think he has a way better shot at winning MVP than what you may think. He has a great offensive line, really good OC, good group of wide receivers to throw the football to. Look out for Jared Goff. And Jared Goff has been playing some of the best football of his career. Jared Goff is playing at as high a level that we've ever seen from him since he took the Rams to the Super Bowl a couple of years back and they lost to the New England Patriots. And when you look at where the Lions rank in the NFC from a talent standpoint, I think that most of us can agree the Lions have one of the top 5 most talented teams in this conference heading into this year. I mean, this offense is stacked. One of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Jared Goff is one of the best QBs in the NFC. If you want to say, okay, JT, Jared Goff is a top 15, top 13 QB, okay. But where does he rank amongst NFC QBs? After Jalen Hurts, who would you put after him? I probably would go Jared Goff, Geno Smith, and Derek Carr. Kirk Cousins. And when I watched Jared Goff play last year, even when he got out to a little bit of a slow start, he wasn't bad. He didn't really have too many games where you looked at and you said, yeah, Jared Goff was just absolutely terrible. So I'm really high on Jared Goff going into this year, higher on him than most people. I think that he doesn't really get the proper respect that he deserves for what he did last season, having one of the best touchdown to interception ratios in the league, taking really good care of the football, and plus being really good throwing the football downfield. Also, that's also something that people overlook about Jared Goff. How good he throws the deep ball. This dude is one of the most accurate deep ball throwers in the NFL. So we need to give Jared Goff a little bit more props. Can we give Jared Goff his flowers, at least going into this season? Because this dude is being heavily overlooked. And if the Lions are going to have a successful season and make a deep playoff run like some people are hoping they will, they need Jared Goff to stay healthy and to continue to play at the high level that he's played the last couple of weeks, the end last year. So when you are judging the Lions roster overall, this is one of the best teams in the NFC. They have some question marks on defense with their interior defensive line, their linebacker unit. Outside of Jack Campbell, you don't have any faith with who's going to be lining up right next to him. But I think that the Lions are a good enough team that they should be able to win this division, because right now they are the favorites to win the NFC North. So we'll see if the Lions are going to be able to live up to expectations. I believe they will, but we could always be wrong. I've been wrong plenty of times about the Detroit Lions, but this could finally be the year that the Lions come out and, they actually make a lot of noise. And for the people who are like, oh man, you just overhyping this Lions team, JT. This is the same old Lions. This is not the same old Detroit Lions. The same old Detroit Lions didn't have a good coaching staff. They never had any good coordinators. Did Matt Patricia ever have a coordinator on his staff that was up for any head coaching jobs? Same thing for who was the previous head coach, the black dude who they had fired, Jim Caldwell. Was he having any coordinators getting interviewed for head coaching opportunities? No. So for Dan Campbell, I think that Dan Campbell has this team trending in the right direction. He has built a really good culture in Detroit. Brad Holmes has done a really good job, in my opinion, of constructing this roster. Despite some of the criticisms that people may have about Brad Holmes, this is one of the better teams that the Detroit Lions have had in a very long time. The last time the Lions had a roster that was anywhere close to this good was the last time they made it to the playoffs. So the Detroit Lions, I think this is going to be a really good team this year. I think they're going to win the NFC North, and they're going to make a lot of noise in the playoffs. I think that they potentially could make the NFC Conference Championship game this year. This run defense, we don't know if it's going to improve dramatically, but it should improve slightly from what it was last year, which you'll take any improvement if you're a Lions fan. And with All the additions that they made in the secondary, I don't see how this pass defense doesn't take a couple of steps of improvement this year. So for the Detroit Lions going into the 2023 NFL season, I think that the hype that they have surrounding them is definitely warranted and well deserved. And Detroit Lions fans, for the first time in probably decades, have a fair reason to be optimistic about this team and to have high expectations. This team has done a really good job throughout the draft. They did a really good job in free agency this year. So I don't think there's any reason why the Lions should disappoint and why they should fail to live up to expectations. This is a really good team, really good coaching staff. You've been getting great quarterback play out of Jared Goff lately. So I think the sky is kind of the limit for the Detroit Lions this season. And they may be a dark horse Super Bowl contender. Some people may consider them to be a championship contender. I think they are. Some people may say, they don't really got enough. You may feel like Jared Goff isn't good enough to get you far in the playoffs. But it's like, what other QBs are you going against that are on his level? Outside of Geno Smith, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, and Jalen Hurts, who is better, it's not a lot of great QBs or even solid QBs in the NFC. So for the people who are saying the Lions won't get far because they got Jared Goff as their QB, take a look at the quarterback landscape in the NFC conference.